Good afternoon, everyone. What a beautiful day to be in Missouri. I've told our candidate that we arranged this weather just for him. It's always this perfect in Missouri, Marshall. Just enjoy it and bask in it. I'm sure in North Carolina it's never this nice, but thank you, this is the place to be. And thank you everyone for coming this afternoon to be part of this candidate forum on a Friday afternoon at 2:30, and to all of those who are watching the live streaming around the state. We're so glad that there's this level of interest and engagement with this process. It's exciting to be part of it. I do want to make a few announcements, and then I'll introduce our candidate. For those who are watching and live streaming, there is about a 44-second delay. So if you are wondering why it's taking a while, it's 44 seconds. I want to remind everybody in the room, if you haven't already done it, to silence your phone. Yes, I see you all reaching for them. So please make sure your phones are silent. We will have, after Dr. Stewart has finished his presentation, we will have time for question and answer, both from folks here in the auditorium, but also we'll be providing an email for those who are listening and watching around the state or the nation, wherever you are, so that you can email in questions as well. So, and we'll share that email with you after the presentation. So just to kind of get, I'm assuming everyone knows who I am. Hi, I'm Jo Turner. I'm the Interim Vice Provost and Director of Extension. Came back to fill that role after the great work that Dr. Tom Henderson did, and am enjoying being back working with the best people in the world, the faculty, the staff, the constituents, the stakeholders, all the partners. It's really an honor to be part of this and to help shepherd us through a transition time. So glad to be with you and to be part of this process. I'm really thrilled today to get to introduce our speaker, but I want him, Marshall, turn around and look out at the crowd, because I'm going to have people put their hands up. And so if you are a regional extension person from somewhere outside of Boone County, raise your hand so Marshall can see who's here. So we've got regional extension faculty and staff. Thank you for coming in. If you're an extension volunteer from the State Extension Council or the 4-H Foundation or other things like that, would you raise your hand and wave so Marshall can see? We've got great representation here. If you're a campus-based extension faculty or staff member, would you wave your hand so Marshall can see? Oh gosh, there's a crowd of them. And if you're just somebody who wandered in because it's looked interesting, would you raise your hand? And for those of you outstate, and I also want to acknowledge our partner from Lincoln University, Ms. Yvonne Matthews, who is the Assistant Administrator for Cooperative Extension. Yvonne, thank you for joining us for this meeting as well. So, did I miss anybody in the crowd? All right, we got you all covered. Thank you for being here. Let's get started with our candidate. I'm pleased today to introduce you to Dr. Marshall Stewart. Some of you have already met him and had a chance to hear him speak. Marshall, and I don't think he can fit this on a business card, but I'm just going to read it. He is currently serving as Special Assistant to the Dean and Director of the College of Leadership and Strategy and the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences at North Carolina State University. And Marshall, is that all on one card? Wow, impressive. But he comes to us with a long and deep career related to the work of education and outreach, having been a high school ag teacher, having worked with the National FFA organization, with the National Association of Agriculture Educators. He's been a department head in his campus. He has was the State 4-H and Family and Consumer Science Program Leader, a merged unit there at North Carolina Cooperative Extension. I think one of the things that we kind of surprised him by, and many of you may know this, but Dr. Bryce Ratchford, who was the president of the University of Missouri and the director of Extension, was a North Carolina native and came to us from North Carolina. And Marshall didn't know that. So we took him in Witten Hall and made him go look at all the pictures on the wall and helped him understand that there is a deep, deep connection between Missouri and North Carolina. So you'll feel right at home here. But I think what I would say about Marshall, having known him myself several years, that he has a real commitment to this kind of work, and he says his purpose and passion in life is to help people. So please welcome Dr. Stewart.
And thank you. What a couple of days I've had at this great institution. And I'm glad to see so many of you that I have seen over the last couple of days have chosen to come back and hear a little bit more. So that's a good sign for me. But thank you, Joe, for that. And I want to thank Stephen Ball as well for the wonderful host he's been, along with the search committee. It's been a great experience for me. I was telling some folks this afternoon as we were getting ready for this that I'm not sure who gained more. Hopefully you've learned a lot about me, but I will tell you that my cup runneth over. It has been a wonderful experience for me to learn about this great institution. And I want to say something that I know this institution is certainly, like all institutions, had its challenges, but you have a lot to be proud of at this institution. The state of Missouri and the University of Missouri is a great place, and I have felt right at home here. That's a lot for a boy from eastern North Carolina to say. And so I know this thing is streaming live, and I'm sure by now it's already back in Raleigh, North Carolina, what I just said. But it's okay. They know I'm here, so that's not a problem. But let me again say, you've got a lot to be proud of. This is an extraordinary institution, an extraordinary extension engagement program, and you need to be proud of that. So if you don't get anything else today, I hope you'll take this as an outsider today who's telling you that you're doing good work, and you need to keep doing that good work because what you do matters. It matters to the people of this state, it matters to the people of this region, this country, and truly the world, because you have a global implication in what you do in this institution. With that said, I want to take what the committee sent us, what folks asked us to do, and I really want to focus in on vision today. It's hard for a guy, though, from 12, 13, 1,400 miles away to come in and impose a vision on you. I'm not going to do that because I believe vision has to be shared. I believe vision has to be collective, and there's a process I think we can go through. So what I'm going to do today is when we get to the vision part of this presentation, I'm going to give you some of the highlights that I think would be in a vision for extension and engagement, and you'll see that. But again, today is about trying to forecast for you what I would bring in terms of not only a vision, but also leadership capacity and some of the things I think that can make this a good partnership should you choose me and we make the arrangement to make our new home here in the state of Missouri. So I hope that's helpful to you, to give you a sense of where we're going today. And I want to talk about the road ahead. I'm not sure exactly where this photo is from, but it's from here in the state of Missouri as best I can tell. Found it somewhere and they said it's Missouri. I said, I'm going to use it. So it's probably in your local community somewhere. You can imagine this. Let's talk about the road ahead and what we're going to talk about today more specifically. First of all, why Missouri? I think it's important for you to know that I haven't interviewed anywhere outside the state of North Carolina for a job with a university for 20 years. So as I told the search committee when I saw them in St. Louis recently, I want to get a photo of this because this is a historic moment for me to leave that great state that I love so much and where I grew up and to make the journey out here. So I'm going to talk to you a few minutes about that. I think that's important. We're also going to talk about the journey to 52.5. That's how old I am, 52 and a half, and I think you need to know a few things about what got me here and what that journey's looked like. I also think it's important for you to understand the vision share, and that's where we'll talk about vision and really share with you some of those attributes that I think are really critical as we think about the future of extension and engagement here at this institution. I will also talk a lot about the pathway forward because it's one thing to have vision, it's another thing to have the skill set to move people toward that. And I'm going to show you a few slides that will show you the things that I would hope we could do together, how we might go about that, and how that vision might take shape here in this great state. And then I want to talk about great expectations, and that is the great expectations that you should have of me should I come here. I think you need to know what you're buying, and I think you need to understand the sort of the mindset I bring, the attitude I bring, and what the leadership style would be. Some of you have already asked me that question. I've actually been asked that question multiple times. So I'm sorry, you're going to have to hear it one more time, but you'll see it's on the slide this time in print. So let's talk about why here, why now. There's really three things. The first thing we'll talk about is history. There's no doubt that you have a rich history of extension engagement in this institution, going back to the mid-50s and what was set up here by Bryce, I guess, that my forefather in extension here, that really set the stage for what you have now, because extension here not only covers cooperative extension, but it also reaches out into continuing education and threads through many of the colleges and schools here, and that is extraordinary. That's one of the things that attracts me. You've got a deep-seated history in this kind of work. You also have commitment. The commitment is found not only in what you've done in the past, but the fact that this university has chosen to move this to a Vice Chancellor's level. That speaks loudly that you're not just talking about the land-grant mission, which I'm very committed to, but you really believe it and you want to live it. The land-grant mission, as we all know, has three parts. There's teaching, there's research, and there's this other thing called extension and engagement. And you want to live that, and you want to do it at a high-profile level. And I believe that's an important component for me. It's something that draws my interest. The other thing is potential. After being here for the last day and a half, there's no doubt, I thought this coming in, but I know this now, your potential to be not only a national leader in this work, but also truly to be the global leader when it comes to this kind of work and extension engagement. This table is set. All we have to do is put the right pieces together, bring together the great talent you already have, and move it forward. So I think there's tremendous potential, not only for the citizens here, but for all those who work around the world that want to carry forward that Missouri pride and those that have been a part of this institution in the past in terms of alumni. My why, I think this is important. What is it that drives me every day? Well, when you tear away all the titles, Joe, and you talk about all the responsibilities I've had, it's really very simple what I found in my life. And you go look at my Vita, you'll see all these titles and this whole journey and all this work experience, and that's been great. But the thing that really drives me every single day of my life is this. I want to help people. I found in my life that fundamentally that's what it's all about. And I've learned that I do that best in the land-grant institution through extension and engagement. I really love that. I enjoy that because it allows me to do these three things. It allows me to lead, it allows me to serve, and it allows me to grow. You see, I've found that by leading others, by serving others, and by growing others, my life's complete professionally. And that's what I want to do if I come here. You will find that to be a thread that is common. This is not about bringing in somebody that you don't know. This is about you understanding who I am, what drives me every day. What is it that makes me want to get up and work every day and go to work and be a part of something? It's these 3 points. It's about leading, serving, and growing. So you'll find that to be me. Now, let's talk about me and the journey. That is me. I put that picture in there for a couple of reasons. First of all, that's a 10.5-pound bass, and I was really proud of him. He still lives with us, and I'll let you figure that out. Let's just say I see him every day at home. So I was really proud of him. It took me 51 years to catch him. I told my son that I would never put one on the wall until it was over 10 pounds. And my son was actually with me the day I caught that. And he took this picture, and it's great evidence. But I also want you to know that I don't wear this every day. I think I wear a suit well. I like to do that. That's fine. But there is a part of me, a big side of me, that's the other side, and that is I'm a person. And I want people of this state to understand I'm approachable, and there'll be a lot of days that we just roll up our sleeves and go to work. There'll be days we fish together, and there'll be days we do other things together. But it's about the person that you're bringing in here. I also want you to know a little bit more about my background personally. I was raised in eastern North Carolina. I come from a very humble background. My dad was a minister. My mother was a homemaker. And I was very fortunate to have great values instilled in me. But I will tell you, we didn't have a whole lot. We just had what we had. We were very fortunate. I don't want to give you some sob story. It's not like that. I had a great home. But I also realized that had it not been for a lot of great mentors, I would have never made the journey to North Carolina State to get my undergraduate, later my master's degree, and later my doctorate. It would have never happened. I had great mentors, people that really pushed me and took me from my parents and moved me forward. I think we all can remember those who we stand on the shoulders of, and I'm certainly an example of that. I think it's our responsibility to do that for others. And certainly in this kind of work, in terms of what we might do here, it's going to be about helping others. Land grant product, 3 times over. Yes, I went to the same institution, and some of you have done that same thing. That's okay, but I love being a land grant person. It is deep in my soul. I believe it is one of the greatest things ever created, whether it be at the 1862 or the 1890 school. The land grant model is something that has transformed this country, and we need to be proud of that, and we need to resurrect that as a nation because it's something that has really transformed lives. I'm a teacher. I started out as an agriculture teacher, and I'm a teacher at heart. That's why leading, serving, and growing is so important to me, because that's what you do when you're a teacher. And I also have lived this extraordinary, enjoyable life. I can tell you that regardless of what happens in this process, it's been an extraordinary life. It's been an enjoyable life. And that's something that I'm always reminded of. No matter what's coming up, what a life I've lived, and what a life of opportunity I've lived in this country. And I'm very grateful for that. And I want to share that with others. Also, my family, this is it. The one on as you look at it, to your right, that's me, of course. If you look to your left, that's Jan. And Jan's a banker. She has a tremendous career professionally, working in the banking industry. She graduated from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill in banking. And yes, we get along fine. It's okay. They beat us in basketball, but we have a great life together. She's my partner and everything else in my life. And the guy in the middle, that's John. Some of you have seen John in other presentations I've done or heard about him. John just graduated from NC State. This was graduation day in December. He is now in D.C. doing public policy work with one of the groups there in ag and food, in the food and ag world. So doing great things. When it comes to family, 3 things matter to me. I want to be a great husband, I want to be a great father, and I want to be a great son. That's really what matters. When that's all said and done, I close it up and I'm done. If I get these 3 things checked off the list, I'll be okay. So that's what matters to me personally. And I've shared that with some of you over the last couple of days of the importance of family and balance in life and how important that is. Professionally, this is me when I started that professional career. This is a month 1 as an ag teacher. I found this, getting ready for this. I had not seen this photo in years. Man, I look young there. But anyway, I was 23 years of age. I was an educator. I started out there, and that's where I still am really at heart. I was an ag teacher, so I certainly had to understand agriculture. I had grown up in agriculture. I started working in agriculture when I was about 10 years old. The regulations were not quite what they are today, but I was driving tractors and putting in the back and picking cucumbers when I was 10 and continued on from there. So I've done a lot of ag work in my life. Great motivator for going to college, by the way. Nonprofit organization work, I've done a lot of that. I've had an opportunity to work at the national FFA level. They really set the stage for me professionally in many ways. They gave me an opportunity to travel the world. I've been in 48 states, foreign countries. I've been all over the world because of that organization professionally and working with them out of the D.C. office or Alexandria office at that time. Through them, I learned a lot about leadership and management, had the opportunity to move up in their organization very quickly and became part of their senior management team by the time I was in my late 20s. I was the youngest guy in the room. I'm not that anymore, but I was very fortunate to have some great mentors who accelerated my career. They said, he can do it, let's give him a chance, and I'm glad they did. It was there that I learned about budget and finance. When I was an ag teacher and I started out my career, I had a $300 budget. I remember the principal telling me that, and I thought, wow, $300. Well, $300 lasted about 3 days. Once I made that first purchase, I went from that literally less than 4 years later working for a national FFA organization and managing $3.5 million. And what I learned was it is just about the zeros. You just have to still stay on focus and do those things, but they taught me a lot about that. And I've had the opportunity since then to use those skills as I moved forward in my career. I also did a lot of work in advocacy and policy, went to work for the National Ag Teachers Association, was their executive director for a couple of years, and that's what set the stage for a lot of the advocacy and policy work. I did federal legislative work there, then had the opportunity, of course, to continue that in NC State and other places I've been. Resource development, I've had the great honor of raising a lot of money in my life and being a partner. I am not a resource development officer, but I do know how to close the deal, and I've had the privilege of either through legislative funds, through contracts and grants, or through private resources to raise somewhere around $29 million over the last decade. And that's been an extraordinary thing that I didn't ever think I could do, but I certainly have learned to do it, and certainly that's been a part of my history. Strategic planning, something I've learned to do very well, particularly in our college, and worked more recently with that, and so that's been a big part. And I know that's something that you've been talking about a lot, is about vision and how we get there, and we'll get to that in a moment. And then finally, I've done a lot of work in higher education, and in particular with executive leadership education. Through the Food Systems Leadership Institute, which I have run now for the last 3.5 years, which is a national program that's managed through us in Ohio State and Cal Poly, I've had the opportunity to work with leaders across higher education, presidents, deans, and those kind of folks. And I will tell you, while I'm supposed to be teaching them, the truth of the matter is, I've been learning a whole lot. And I've been looking for the opportunity to use those skills even more. And certainly this could be one of those great opportunities. So when you look at this picture, you have to realize I've worn a lot of brands. I've worn this brand. I've worn the Ag Teacher Association brand. I've worn the NC State brand. I've worn the Clover. You don't see those two, all that together very often. I've worn both of those. I've worn the Family Consumer Science brand, which you call HES, same thing, where I am. In North Carolina Cooperative Extension, have had the opportunity to wear that brand proudly for a number of years, and then finally to have the NC State brand in terms of the college and the work I do in the college. But the brand that we'll see if I get to wear is this brand. And that's really a brand that y'all have got to decide whether this is the right choice for you or not. But I didn't want to leave this out. I figured you'd get a kick out of that one too. So let's talk about vision. What is 21st century extension and engagement? I think it's about 3 things, and some of you have, again, heard me share this earlier in the last couple days, and that is it's about people, it's about programs and partnerships. When we did strategic planning at North Carolina State in our college, we found very quickly that these 3 things came up as themes, and I don't think they're unique to us. And I'm going to walk you through why each one of those is important, how it's important, and this is where we get into the elements of what I think could be a vision here. Again, I'm going to give you some of the attributes, characteristics, how we get there, when we get there, and what it exactly looks like. This is not going to be a vision statement. I don't think that's really what you want. You want to kind of see what I see over the horizon, and these are the kind of things I see. First of all, let's talk about people. People first. People are the first piece of our puzzle when we talk about extension and engagement. They need to be highly profiled in our vision. I believe in talent acquisition and talent development. And when I say that, I'm not just talking about the people who work for us in a paid way. I'm talking about the volunteers, the advisory council, all the folks that we work with as partners. We need to be about growing that talent base and growing those people and keeping them front and center. You see, our subject matter content's important. Don't get me wrong. I believe in that. But it's really about behavioral change and adoption of new practices that we're all about. And so it's really about the people that we got to keep our focus on. We serve the taxpayers of Missouri, and we got to keep that front and center. They put us here. We need to be accountable to them. We need to partner with them. And I think there's ways for us to do that. People first. We need to have a diverse and inclusive environment. And I think that, and I've had the experience of working through that in some different situations, but diversity is one of those things that I've seen in higher education in particular. We've done a good job probably of recruiting more diversity. I think we have fallen short in the inclusive side, though. So we may have more diverse faces, but I'm not sure we have done a good job in terms of that inclusiveness. And we've got to work hard at that, because that means a lot of changes and things we have to think about in terms of inclusiveness. We have to have a high trust culture. We have to be transparent and open in our communication. Those are things that should be compelling in our vision. People should see that. They should feel that. A lot of times people put words on paper and it's an academic document in higher education. We need to have something that's compelling, that draws people in, that makes them feel emotionally tied to what we're doing. And again, these elements are important with people. Relationship driven. You got to be out with the people. If I get this job, some of you have asked what you're going to do in the first 3 weeks or 3 months. I can tell you, folks, for the next 10 years, or however long you keep me around, I'm going to be on the road a lot, because I've got to be out with the people. I think that's really important, whether it's in continuing education or cooperative extension or whatever element we're working in. We've got to be out with the people a lot. So people and relationship-driven are built that way. Also, embracing students in the living laboratory and alumni. This is something that's not talked about a lot in terms of extension engagement, but through service learning, through public service that students are really interested in, a lot of them are now, I think we can have a new element that we could bring in a very robust way in terms of extension engagement. I also think our alumni can be a partner with us. You've got alumni around the world that love this organization of extension and engagement, this entity of extension and engagement. They love this institution. We need to capitalize on that and partner with them so they can help us do a better job. I also think we have to honor and recognize our history. You know, we talk about the dates and the times and what went on 100 years ago or 50 years ago, and we always talk about the times and the events, but it's really the people that did it. And as we move forward, as people retire from our ranks and become in a different role with us, for instance, we need to bring them with us. I think one of the big mistakes I see is sometimes people retire from a system and we don't figure out ways to continue to use their talent and their input as we go forward. We need to bring them with us. So they're part of the people equation here. Next, we'll talk about programs in the vision. Programs need to be interdisciplinary and integrated. You hear that a lot. We're all talking about it around the country. It's very hard to do. And in order to do that, we need to think about how we create university-wide integration. How can we make sure that extension engagement is integrated into all the colleges, all the schools? And I think in this role as Vice Chancellor, I would have the chance to really work on that, to work with deans and work with others so that the public can be served. It's not just about having our name there. It's about making sure the citizens, the 6+ million citizens of this state, are getting served in the way they should. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there. We also need our programs to be high quality and high impact. They need to be imaginative, innovative, entrepreneurial, and they need to drive toward big ideas. One of the questions that I've often asked is, what's that big idea? What's that next thing you're thinking about? And sometimes people look at you kind of puzzled because they're so busy doing what they're doing now, they can't think about the next thing. Folks, we've got to build some time in so we can think about that next horizon, so that we can do those things that matter to the people in this state and therefore have that ripple effect around the world that can be so powerful for us. We've got to be responsive to the current and emerging needs. We've got to support the academic mission of discovery and dissemination, which is core to this institution. We're not adversaries. We've got to be core to that and make sure we're supportive of that in ways. Then also in programs, we've also got to make sure we recognize and enhance community-based engaged scholarship. Extension, if you think about it, historically was us taking information out to the people and teaching them how to use it. Engagement, though, brings a different dimension. It's where we sit down with the community and create a common solution. where their thoughts and their ideas and our thoughts and our ideas come together and create something we never would have thought of otherwise. And that's where I think that's an area that certainly can continue to grow here. You obviously have done a lot of work in that in some communities. We can do more. And then rural, suburban, and urban. We've talked about this a lot over the last couple days, and certainly our footprint today is very urban as well as rural. You can't leave rural behind. You got to continue to serve that, but you got to also stretch out to reach those in those urban communities because, quite frankly, that's where the population is shifting, and so we got to make sure we do both. It's not going to be easy. I'm not saying this is easy work. I'm just saying it's necessary work if we're going to be surviving in the future and continue to do great work through this institution. Let's talk about partnerships. I've learned about Truman. I like Truman, and my goal in terms of partnerships is to make sure that Truman, the tiger, is everywhere he should be. I want to plant that flag at all levels, wherever he should be, but it always needs to be, a partnership needs to be driven based on where your people are talented, where you got the capacity, where you've also got the programmatic depth to do good things, then you can build a partnership. We don't need to be running out to partnerships just to have partnerships. We need to be running out to partnerships when it makes sense, and it's going to make us better and allow us to do more. So that's a big part of partnerships. Partnerships are also about diversifying our funding portfolio. We've got to do that. We know state and federal funds at best are flat, if not declining in some cases. So we've got to do more private resource development, more grants and contracts. We've got to think about fee-for-service and those kind of things. Those are important elements so that we diversify our portfolio because all those funding streams really represent partnerships. So I want you to think about them as partners, not just streams of income. And so I really think that's a part of our vision, something we have to think about. We have to think about interinstitutional, working with other institutions like Lincoln University, those kind of institutions. Also working in terms of other institutions in the state. What can we do with private sector? What can we do with other agencies in terms of public-private partnerships? And my hope would be that as we do that, we can plant Truman on a flag where it has this logo of ours everywhere it needs to be. And I think we can make Truman really shine in terms of those partnerships. So partnerships, again, think about it. People, programs, partnerships, all part of that inclusive vision of where we need to be in the future. So what outcomes should we expect from 21st century extension engagement? I think that many of the issues that we are facing in higher education in general, which is primarily, and I'll sum it up this way, is a loss or an erosion of public trust and support. Many public institutions are seeing this. This is not just unique in Missouri. You have that stress. Well, people say to you, how can you change that? Well, I think you can change it in lots of ways, but I think one of the big ways to change it is through improving your public engagement. Because here's what will happen. If you change your public engagement and you get better at it, so through engagement and extension and all the outreach we do, if we do a really good job at that, what's going to happen is public trust is going to go up because we're serving their needs. They believe in us. And if public trust goes up, guess what happens? Public value goes up. People really begin to talk well about us. They can articulate what we do better. And if they talk better about us and they like us more and they feel favorable to us, guess what will happen? Public investment goes up. You see, I think public engagement, actually, the stuff we're talking about with extension and engagement, can be the key to ensuring that public institutions, not just Missouri, but all over the country, have an opportunity to really do some phenomenal things in the future. Because when that happens, students come to your door as the institution. More alumni have greater involvement. Donors want to do more with you as you move forward in those realms. So let's talk about some other outcomes. What will this mean? It will mean greater impact for Missourians, greater public trust, value, and investment, greater state, national, global recognition for the institution, greater access, affordability, and accountability. And I put those three words in particular in there because I want you to know that in higher education today, those are the three words that are most talked about. How can we make our programs, our institutions, more accessible, more affordable, and have greater accountability? How can you do it? You show me a way that you can do it better than having great extension and engagement. If you do that well, you've provided access, you've made it affordable, and you're accountable to the taxpayers. I would say that we are one of the answers to that prevailing question that exists today in higher education. And then again, supporting that discovery and dissemination of knowledge mission of the institution. So the pathway forward, the process that I would suggest to you is planning strategically, not strategic planning. If I say strategic planning, I can see your body language go down immediately. There's a reason for that, and you're not unique in that. That's the whole country. When I tell people I do strategic planning, you can see them go, oh, Lord, I don't want to hear that. But What I would say to you is that I think there's a process we can institute here that we've used in my home institution recently of planning strategically. You do set out some goals, you go through a process there. I would bring that to you, and that would be our pathway to trying to get to these two fundamental questions. These are the two most fundamental questions in any process we would do, and that is this: why do we exist? And then who do we aspire to be? You see, if you don't know why you really exist, and you don't know who you aspire to be, it's very difficult to get there. And when you get there, you won't even know it. So think about that. The stuff in the middle is not that hard. I mean, you got to figure out the goals and the strategies and the metrics and all the stuff in the middle. But these two fundamental questions really frame what you would do and how we would go forward. So I would challenge you and say to you that what we would do is we'd have a conversation all over the state to talk about why do we exist today? Not what we did in 1914 when all this stuff started, but why do we exist today? What is our purpose in extension engagement, and where do we want to be? Once we get that mapped, the middle part will come to us in terms of vision and a strategy to move us forward. Also, we would look at how we would do this, a lot of listening, learning, responding, and acting. These are characteristics you will expect from me, and I will do these things. I will go out and do a lot of listening, a lot of learning, a lot of responding, a lot of acting in terms of getting out, taking action on different areas. It's also important for you to think about the issues. And I hesitated to do this because when I throw issues up here, people go, well, he left my issue out. I don't want to leave anybody out, but I want to at least give you a frame to think about some broad issues. I do think there's three drivers, and I've used this illustration for years. Think about what people talk about at the kitchen table. What does a family talk about, or what do people talk about when they have lunch together? Typically, there are three things. They talk about the economy, education, and health. That's not unique. That's not different. Now, people say, well, where's agriculture? Well, agriculture is an economic issue. Agriculture is also a health issue because of the food system and the connection with nutrition. People would say, well, where is nutrition? Well, nutrition is a health issue. It also is an agricultural issue. It also is an economic issue because if you decrease healthcare costs, you've helped the economy. And you say, well, education, well, we want people to be educated not only K-12, but also across the board. So what I think we can do is look at this as potentially a model, but again, we'd have to build a lot more out on this, what it means, bring definition to it. But I believe it begins to give us a target of what we can drive against and do in the future. I also am a big believer in economic feasibility studies. We've done a lot of these recently, two big ones at NC State and our college recently around plant sciences and also food manufacturing. They gave us the data we needed then to go to policymakers to get new investments. And I can tell you there was nothing like it. We actually had legislators pay for the economic feasibility studies, and then we used that to go back to them and ask for additional investments, and I will tell you it works because you're showing jobs, you're showing the impact on communities, you're able to show how it can really work. This is a way to get new investments into extension engagement, into anything you want to do, but I certainly believe we could use this type of model or something similar here. So let's talk about leadership philosophy. What's your expectations? I was asked by the search committee what my leadership philosophy was, and I answered it just this way, if I remember right. I hope I did. I hope it's consistent. Am I right, Marcia? I think it is. I think she asked me that question. I'm a caring listener. I'm purpose-driven. I'm strategic. I'm a finisher. I finish stuff. I'll finish it. I'm really tough on finishing. And the last thing is I'm trustworthy. And trust is not something you're going to give me some latitude if I come here, obviously, but trust is earned. And that'll be something I have to earn over time because you don't know me, and quite frankly, I don't know you. That's something we'll build through those relationships. In terms of great expectations, what's the culture I would want to have? This is the culture I would work for every day, and this is things I've worked for in my past life, in my career. Innovation and participation, trust, community, and collaboration. I think if you can achieve pretty high marks on those areas, I think you've done it. And these were things I wrote long before I came to this institution to do this two-day interview. But these are the things that I think really sit well with where you are and what you are interested in. So I can tell you again, these are things that I would work toward in terms of a leadership culture because I think they're important, and I think they create the kind of culture where people want to come work with us and partner with us in the future. We'd also look at leadership approach. I'm going to tell you where these came from. I have a great friend of mine, a faculty member at NC State, who had an opportunity to go to Oregon State and take a department head job. And he had been at the institution for 30 years at NC State. And he called me one day, and I'd helped him interview and get ready for his interviews. And he said to me, he said, do you have any tips for me? I've never been an administrator. He said, do you have any tips for me? And so I sat down. I said, yeah, let me think about that. So I wrote down. I'd been a department head. I'd done some things like that. I said, if I was going into a new job today, this is what I would do. So I gave him the 10. Here's 5 of them. What's interesting is I didn't know I'd use them for another opportunity someday, but I'm going to have to live up to these. Number 1, the first thing you can expect if I take on this role is I'll take some time to learn. I do not know Missouri. I'm not a Missourian. As much as I may want to be right now, or you may want me to be right now, I'm not right now. I've got to learn that. I've got to learn your culture, about your institution, and all that you are. I've also got to love you, and you got to love me back, at least for a while. We've got to figure out how to get there. And I mean that very sincerely, though. I mean that very sincerely. You got to love your people, and you got to believe in them, and they got to believe in you. You got to be your best self. It's what's got you here, and don't change. I will not change. I will evolve and get better, but I won't change who I am. No question about that. I'm going to enjoy it, and I'm not going to forget to have fun. That's important in all of our work. I'm going to challenge myself and those around me, so you got to challenge yourself every day, and I'll do that. The other things I'll do in my life is take some risk and not be afraid to fail. We're going to take some risks, some big ones, and we're going to make some mistakes if I come here. I can tell you that right now because I believe. But let me tell you something. It doesn't take but one home run. You forget about all the failures. One home run. And then you go back, you take a few more swings, you strike out a few more times, then you go back again, hit another big home run. We're going to hit some home runs. And home runs make up for any of those losses along the way. And that's exciting. That's what keeps people energized. I also believe you have to make time to grow yourself personally and professionally. I'm committed to that myself. I would expect anybody that works in our organizations affiliated with us to do the same. I believe in that very strongly. Live on purpose, be intentional in everything we do. It's really important to find good and trusted people to mentor me, and I'll be looking for that if I come here because I want people that can really inform me and help me. The last thing is don't feel like you can do it alone. Let others help you. There was a guy named Bill Bennett who was Secretary of Education for many years. You might remember under Reagan and I think during the Reagan years, and he said, "You could do it without me. I can't do it without you." I think that's a great statement. You could do it without me. I can't do it without you. And that really embodies what this is all about. You could do this great work whether Marshall Stewart comes here or not, but I'd certainly like to be a part of it, but I do. We'll do it together. My last slide is this one. This is a leadership challenge for you. Jim Collins has written a lot of books about companies and organizations. Good to Great was his famous book, and then he wrote another one entitled Great by Choice. And he says this, and this is in the last real tail end of the book, and I think it's really well said. Great leaders choose values over victory and purpose over profit. That really describes the kind of life and the kind of ethic that I try to live every single day of my life. Great leaders' drive and standards are internal, rising from deep inside. I'm driven by something that's deep inside of me that was put in me by not only my parents but others, that it's about serving others, it's about helping others, growing others, leading others. And we're not imprisoned by our circumstances, luck, setbacks, mistakes, past successes, times we live in, hours in a day or days in our lives. We are not imprisoned by anything. Whatever happened yesterday, good or bad, happened. And it's time to move on. And we have to believe that, and we have to move on because the citizens of this state deserve that. It is our responsibility to serve them. And if I come here, you can expect to hear that every single day. When I took the job as department head, I would say to faculty, and many of them, if you were to go and quiz them today, I would ask them this question: what have you done today to make a difference in the life of a child, of a youth, of a family, or a community? And they would look at me and say, what? I said, what have you done to make a difference? And they would look back at me and they would say, I don't know. I'd say, well, if you don't know, then I suggest you go home, take a few hours and think about that. Because that is what we do. When you're in extension engagement kind of work, it's about making a difference in their life. It's not about me, it's about them. Thank you. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you, Marshall, so much. So let me, so those in the room be thinking about it. We have a couple microphones. We'll ask you to come to the microphone, introduce yourself, and then to share your question. If you are listening and watching via the live stream, here's the email that you can use to send questions. So get your pencil ready. You may email perkinsj@missouri.edu, and those around the room are looking at Janice Perkins. That is right. That's her email. She's there with her laptop. So perkinsj@missouri.edu. And we'll take some of the questions from the audience, and then we'll have Janice check her email and see if there's some that we can relay via that are coming in from around the state. So let me open up the forum, and I'm sure Marshall's ready to tackle anything that you want to talk. Anyone want to start with the question, please come to the mic and again introduce yourself and pose your question.
Marshall, thank you for that Great presentation. I'm Steve Ball, chair of the search committee, fitness specialist in nutrition, exercise physiology. Early on, you said the table was set here at Missouri. Could you expand a little bit what you meant with that statement?
I'll go back to the 1950s when this was set up here, and I was so glad to learn about the history, Joe, about this institution and your former president, who was, I guess, director of extension and vice president of extension engagement at one time. The table is set because this institution, number one, you're a comprehensive institution. Now, by that I mean, if I was to take this institution to my great home state, and I was to look at it, I would have to take NC State and University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and put them together. You've got it all. You got it from a med school, a college of agriculture, you've got a law school, you've got all the different pieces here. That's comprehensive. So comprehensively, you've got all the pieces. That's number one. Number two, those that came long before us set a vision in place for extension and engagement. I think it's extraordinary that that happened when it did, because it set a tone and a pace that forced this university to always be mindful at some level about the entire engagement piece and outreach piece. And so the table is set when I think about that history, but then I also think about where you are now. One thing that I have learned, even in my last couple days, is the passion. There is tremendous passion. It doesn't matter if it's a person on campus, if it's the person that works in continuing education, if it's the person that's a stakeholder working on the Extension Council. There is passion that I haven't seen very many places. And I will say, we got a lot of passion in North Carolina, but you're right up there with that passion in North Carolina. So that says a lot, because the passion's here. I also believe that when institutions have leadership, and I had the privilege of meeting with your chancellor, and I heard what he said about his future and what he would love to do here and what he sees in this program, this initiative. I think it all adds up. So you've got historical precedent, you're a comprehensive university, you've got leadership that wants it, you've got passion on the ground out there, be it on campus or off campus. The table's set. You're also, the last thing I would say is geographically, you probably don't think about this because you live here, but you're dead center of the country. From where I live, you're dead center. I know it may be a little off. People out here may disagree, but you're dead center of the country. You're also dead center of the state. There is something about an institution being in the middle. And what I can visualize is you becoming that global leader. And I say that where people want to come here and learn how you do it. I learned today that there's folks in international space that come here. Some international groups come here occasionally. I heard that from the advisory group that come here occasionally to learn what you do in volunteer. We can expand that. We can become one of those places, destinations in academia where people want to come and learn. And I think by them coming to learn from us, guess what happens? We learn from them. And I want us to be a player in that space. The table's set. The right leadership, whoever that may be. You got talent. My goodness, you got talent. I've met with, who have I not met with? I've met with everybody. I feel like I've met all 6 million of you, but I know I haven't. But oh my goodness. But it's really been refreshing to know I don't have to come. It's not like the cupboard is bare. You got great talent. You just need a coach to come in and help think about how to work through that and how to make it in the right place. So hope that helps. Is that accurate?
I have an email question. Could you elaborate on your communication style and how you keep large numbers of employees informed?
Okay. Been asked that quite a few times this week, last couple days. First of all, communication, my best style and my preferred style is when I get to go out and meet with people. And I know that if I get this role, I'm going to be on the road a lot. So you can expect it. I need to know where all the good barbecue joints are. I need to know where all the good hot dogs are, or whatever it is you have here. I got to learn that. Okay, there we go. There you go. I've already got a recommendation. But I've got to get out and see people. So communications-wise, a lot of it's getting out and seeing staff, getting out and seeing stakeholders, making it where they feel very personal with me. I want people to feel like they can call me if they got a question. I want them to feel like they can get in touch with me quickly so that we can address those concerns that come up. But also, I want to hear the good stuff. When something goes right, I want you to tell me that too, because that's important too. We need to hear it all. In terms of communication style, though, so first of all, it's getting out and seeing a lot of people. I think another thing is that when we communicate, and this will be important for the team here on campus as we work together, is I got to make sure, and I think they would agree, I want to have a clear sense of where we're headed so everybody can sing out of the same songbook. So it's not just me having to say it, but everybody feels it, and everybody's excited about it. You know, we don't need to live in any kind of anxiety or fear. We need to live in joy and victory in this stuff. We need to feel good about what we're doing. And I think we can do that. And so I really want to see us, so it's not just me, but many of you become those voices. And we're all talking the same thing. I think another piece of communication is obviously there's newsletters, there's all these tools you can use. We've got a great marketing team here I've met already, and I'm sure we'll figure out ways, webinars or whatever. But the important thing is for people to have a clear, the communication thing gets easier if people have a clear sense of where you're going and you're operating out of transparency so they know what's going on. If you got those two pieces, the rest of it gets a lot easier. So I've given you a lot of different strategies there. I know you didn't personally ask the question, somebody in the state did, but there's a lot that goes into that. But again, a lot of it's relational, and for me to get out there and know people, and for us all to feel the same way. And I've told some folks today, I want some of this staff and folks that work here so hard, I want them to be with me on a lot of that. I want to get out there and see the stuff. I want them to feel it too. You know, it's not just me, it's we. And that's something I want to say too. Maybe I'll add one more point to that question. This cannot be built. If I come here, whatever we build in the future cannot be built on me. I will help you build it, but it's not about me. This is about the University of Missouri. This is about Missouri Extension and Engagement, because it has to be sustainable long after I'm gone. And I'm not going anywhere if I come here for a long time, but someday I want to be able to leave it behind and it be sustainable. And so the communication style, the things we do, what we say, how we act, how we behave in all ways has to be sustainable for the long term. And that's something I'll work hard to do.
I'm Glenn Coleman from the West Central Region State Council Representative. The question that I have for you is, what is your knowledge of Missouri method of extension, and what is your appreciation that we Missourians believe in and are fond of the system organization?
What's my knowledge of the Missouri Extension System? And then the second part is, say that last part one more time.
What is your appreciation that we Missourians believe in and are fond of the system's organization?
Well, absolutely. First of all, great question. The first part of that, I have had the pleasure, because I was involved so long in extension nationally, that I saw a lot of your talent come to national meetings. I've been with Joe. I've been with so many people through the years. And I've been here. I've been here. I've spoken at your conference 2 years ago. I had an opportunity to keynote here. So I've been familiar with what you've done. You do a great job. The quality of programming you do, you're exemplary in some things, whether it be in the 4-H world. I've seen some great stuff there. I've seen great stuff in the HES area. Agriculture, obviously, you do a lot of great stuff. You look at, again, cooperative extension, your community development stuff has been fantastic. Dr. Lucy's done a tremendous job in many areas. I mean, there's just been a lot of great work done in so many areas there, and it's noted nationally. So it's not just what I'm saying, but I could bring you a whole bunch of people that would say that. So the quality of what you've done there, and again, I've learned a lot about the continuing education piece coming here and how it's threaded through all the colleges, et cetera. So that's something I've learned along the way, but I've certainly been impressed. I know that you folks are passionate, though, because I've had a chance to meet you now. Wow, passion. I met with the Extension Advisory Group this morning. I met with you this morning. And I got it full force, but they got it full force back, too. So we got along just fine, didn't we? Because I go right at it, too. So, you know, it doesn't take me long to figure this out. People that believe in something, you can see it. And I've seen some of you literally, and I won't tell who, but I've seen some of you talking to me the last couple of days, and I've seen sort of the tear come in your eyes. You're talking about it because you're passionate. I know what that is. I get it. I see it. And so their passion's there. What we got to do is just figure out a way to harness that passion. And let's drive toward common goal. And when we score touchdowns and home runs and three-pointers or whatever it is in your life that you enjoy in athletics, I want to cover everybody. I don't want to make anybody unhappy. Whatever it is, we're going to do some good things. So I know the passion's there. We just need to work together. Hope that answered your question, Glenn. Yeah.
Brad Anderson, 4-H Center for Youth Development, State Specialist. Do you have any, great presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
Do you have any thoughts on, as we move forward, how do we build innovation into the culture and structure of Extension?
One of the great projects I've done over the last couple of years is something that we call Big Ideas at NC State. And we did that actually in our college. We had this problem where we didn't have any space. I'm not talking about physical space, I'm talking about time for people to get together and work together. So what we created was a process called Big Ideas. Big Ideas is where we tell faculty, for instance, or it could be your specialist or whoever, you got this idea and you need some money just to get some people together to talk through it. So it drives interdisciplinary program. That's what we're really after, to be honest with you, an integrated program as well. So what we tried to do is create some place there and give them some dollars to pull the right teams together. So we've done that. Now sometimes we might give them, and I'll use a very simple example. We'll give somebody $500. Say, okay, invite your 10 best friends and experts in this to lunch. Y'all get a lunch, have a great lunch for $500. You can eat well in North Carolina, so they're doing okay. But they'll get together for a day. They'll have a sort of a get together. They'll shake some ideas down. They'll come up with one or two they really like. It has to be interdisciplinary. It has to be interdepartmental. We have some characteristics we're looking for. And what they've done is they've gotten together and they've come up with some great ideas. Then they come back to us and they say, okay, we got this idea. We've kind of crystallized it. We need $5,000, do a little more. So if it doesn't quite cut muster, we'll send it back to them and we'll do some negotiation. Typically, most of those once they get to that level, we'll give them $5,000. And what we did is carve out some dollars through private resource development and other ways we brought some dollars in. And those people then go back and they build a bigger team. And they may have a 2-day forum to really hammer out a proposal or get around some big idea they want to do. And then what happens is if they get through that process and they get to the next level, then we unleash some bigger money. And what happens is we'll tell you, for instance, if you raise, there's a cap on it, but let's say you raise $100,000, we'll give you $100,000. And what happens is usually by the time it gets to that level, they'll go find the grant money and they're rolling. But they needed some space to do innovation. What happens is in organizations, it's really true in higher education, there's a lot of great ideas, but people just don't have that incentive and they don't feel like they'll be valued by doing that extra mile. So if you put a little money on the table, usually you can get them to come together. When we started that, I'll tell you a story about that. We were trying to come up with the next big idea that we were going to tackle. And what we found was the faculty didn't want another big idea from us. They wanted to come up with a big idea. They wanted us to, their big idea back to us, because I had to do a couple days of working with faculty on this. Their big idea to us was, give us the opportunity, the environment to do big idea work, and we'll come at you hard. And they have. We've got some major initiatives in the college, multi-million-dollar grants coming in that we would have never had we not spent $500. You know, if you can bring $1 million in 18 months later and you put $500 on the table here, you've done okay. So that's the kind of things I'm thinking about. I think it'll work here. I really do. Yes, sir.
Yes, my name's John Loy, a nutrient management specialist at the state level. I was wondering, as you look across, we have folks in the region, we have folks at the state level. You know, obviously our roles have to change and evolve over time. I guess maybe you could talk a little bit about, you know, what you see as some of the different strengths at those levels and how both of those groups maybe have to change as we move to the future.
I think some of that's going to be tough for me to answer yet because I haven't been here, but I don't want to avoid your question. I think what has to happen, though, that we have to get with our stakeholders, with folks that work on campus or in these various positions, and we have to have conversations around that. So I can tell you about a process I would use, and maybe that helps a little bit. I don't think, though, that, and this is part of this whole thing of discovering why we exist today. Why we exist today is not exactly why we existed in 1914, and so many states are still trying to operate on that model, and there's some threads of that probably here. I don't know. They probably are everywhere. What we have to do is figure out how do we adjust those positions. Are there ways to be more integrated in those positions? Are there ways to use digital technology for some of our clientele that maybe we haven't thought about in the past? I know there's initiatives going on here around that right now with some things you're trying to do in e-learning. I think we have to think differently, though, because when you've got a declining base of state and federal resources, you can't do the same you've always done. So, again, one of the things I've thought about a lot, too, though, is on the private resource side, I think there are people that have had the experience of extension in their lives in some way, extension, cooperative extension, whatever program, and because of that, they would now be in a position to really help us fund some things in the counties or in the regions that could be different. So I think it's a blend of staffing, new resource development, and also using new technologies. And somewhere in the middle of that, I mean, there's obviously, whatever is here today is likely to change. It's going to change, and that's part of my job in leadership is to walk us through that change. And I think as long as you're transparent, as long as you tell people what you're doing, as long as you've done the homework, people may not like what you're having to do, but they will go with you because they believe. And that's a big part of leadership, and that's something I'll try to bring if I can get here. I wish I could tell you more depth on that, but I have not been here, and it's kind of hard for me to get too deep into that without that. Yeah.
Dennis, you want to go ahead? I have another question from email says, what are your expectations of faculty and staff, and how can we help you be successful in this position?
How can you help me? My expectation, I want people to do quality programs. I want to be high quality, high impact. I'm just going to leave it there. Just do good work, and don't stop doing good work. You're doing good work. Don't think that's different than what you're doing. Continue to do the good work, serve the people, meet their needs. Really important. My expectation, how people can help me, it's going to be very important that people feel comfortable in coming to me. I know we've got structures. We've got regions. I met with the regional folks today, and we've got program leaders. I respect all those levels, but I want people to feel very comfortable in just coming straight to me and saying, I've got an issue I need to talk to you about. That's the kind of leadership I am. When I took over as a department head, I think some of you will understand this. There's a little bit of hierarchy in departments at the university campus. There's all these, I flattened that thing in 30 days. And we started having department meetings that included everybody. And what I found was it was really important, because if I was going to set a new vision and work with them to set a new vision for our department, I had to have everybody, from the senior most full professor to that newest hired bookkeeper, had to be a part of that conversation. And I figured out ways to do that. So how can they help me? Don't be afraid. Be willing to come to me. Be willing to invite me. Get me out there where I can see you and work with you. Let's build that relationship. You build a relationship with me, we can do a lot of good things together. And more likely than not, you're going to be happy, and I will be too.
Okay. My question we didn't touch on a little bit earlier.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Anita Hampton. I am the current State Council Chair. Sliding out here real quick.
She's real big on telling people she's sliding out of that chair.
I'm sliding out. I am staying on State Council, and I am going to be the Vice Chair of Communications, which is what I really love doing. Basically, my question is on budgeting. When I began with Extension many, many years ago as a volunteer, the majority of the Extension budget was from state funding. That is not the case anymore. Most of it is grants, contracts, and that type of things that we have went out and had to look at other ways to supplement as state revenues, state support declined. Give me some thoughts on how you might grow that budget and maintain that budget. And you know, I'm very concerned about our specialists, because when less than 10 years ago, we had 343 employees, field specialists. Now we're down to 220 or something like that, and we have the threat of possibly losing some more. So these are really questions that are hard to address, and I'd like to hear what you say.
I think the key to that is that you've got to really be articulate, and you've got to make sure that there's two sides of this. One is, part of your challenge is obviously internally in the institution, to make sure people upline from where I will sit clearly understand what we're doing, see the value in it, so that they become champions for us. You got to have that. I've experienced that in my own institution. I can say that. There have been times that perhaps not the current chancellor, but sometimes in the past in our institution, we didn't have that kind of support. It wasn't articulated well. So we had to work really hard on it. So in the institution, you got to make sure that you're aligned and that they're championing your cause. So that's a piece of it. Second piece of it is the external stakeholders, where you sit. We've got to make sure that you have the right tools, the right knowledge, the right expertise to be informed, so you can be strong advocates in the right way. Now, part of that, as we talked about earlier today, is using the right advocacy techniques. And those do change, and we have to be very careful about that, how we do that. We've got to also make sure we stay certainly open with the university about what we're doing, those kind of things. And there's ways to do that. That doesn't mean it doesn't hold anybody back. It just keep people informed and stay open in your process. My goal here would be, when it comes to the state line, is to stop the bleed. You just got to stop. Now, once you get it stopped, then you can think about the move forward. So that's your recurring line that you're thinking about there. When I think about what we do forward, though, I think this is where big ideas come in, the question that was asked earlier. This is where new investments can happen, where people think about some new initiative. I'll use plant sciences, or in food processing and manufacturing, or some new area in whatever. You pick whatever area you want to. where you pick out something, and if you get that idea big enough and it comes back at you in health or whatever, you're able to build in lines for extension. So let's say there's a new $10 million coming in for some new initiative. Well, you build in support for cooperative extension or for continuing education or whatever within that budget. You're still able to accomplish the same thing. It's just not on the same line anymore. So there's ways to do this, and that's what we're doing. I can tell you this is exactly what we've had to do. We stopped the bleed, and then we began to look at new ideas. Not 100% true what I'm getting ready to say, but largely true. A lot of policymakers are not interested in investing in what has been. They're interested in what could be. And that's okay. I don't have a problem with that. But we have to give them what could be. We have to give them those new ideas. And I think that's where policymakers get really excited. Once they can see the vision, and that's why I think it's important to talk about why we exist and what we want to be. Once you get that map for them, they can see it. And resources will come behind that. I believe that. I've seen it. I had another question here. One more. Yes, please.
Question. I know we have some others, but in fairness to Marshall, he has
I'm
to go
good.
and do another session at 4 o'clock. So let's give him
No, I'm fine. Please. You've been waiting.
So to my colleagues in the room, thank you for letting me have the last question. Again, I thank you for your presentation this afternoon. I am, of course, here representing Lincoln University, and I am hoping that I can hear, as part of how you see your vision, the inclusion of the relationship with the other land grant institution. Since there are 2 of us here in the state, what does that look like in your vision?
Great question, and thank you for asking it. I've had the great opportunity, as we talked a little earlier, to work at with North Carolina A&T State University. We have a wonderful partnership between NC State and them in terms of cooperative extension. So my experience there, and there's some great people there that I've had a chance to work with to build that relationship. And what I would see us doing is really looking at the assets that you bring to the table, the assets we have, and let's make sure we don't duplicate effort. There's ways to do that. I come from a state where cooperative extension from the 1890 school has a thread that runs through the entire state. There's an opportunity for them to have outreach across the state. I'm certainly open to that because I've seen it work. So I'm very open to that conversation. I want to, when we do programming as appropriate, it needs to be shown that we're partners in that. If you go back and look at where we are in North Carolina, you'll see a lot of combinations of the 2 institutions together. I think that's really important because both institutions have a lot to offer. So whether it be in a program or in people and opportunities there, or whether it be in a partnership to show it more visibly, I'd love to see that become more visible and more integral to what we're doing. I think there's a lot of ways to do that. I think it's going to require conversations, but my experience tells me that's a win-win. Both institutions rise when we put them together. She told me I can't take any more questions. So.
Marshall, thank you, Marshall, for your remarks and for your presentation. I do want to let folks know that there will be an opportunity to provide feedback about both candidates. There'll be an email blast sent out on Wednesday after we've finished our next step of the search with another candidate for you to provide feedback. So please respond. It's really critical that we hear from all of you as key stakeholders in this important search. Again, Marshall, thank you. I know we put you through the ringer. They're not quite done with you yet, but we're just honored to have you here. And I would like to also say thank you to our search committee members. Would the search committee members stand up, please, so we can give them a round of applause? I know it's a lot of work. This is truly a labor of love to do this for your university. I was complaining one time when I chaired a search with a professor, and I said, my gosh, we've done this. The search failed. We had to start over. I can't stand the thought of doing it again. He says, Joe, there's no more important job that you do for your university than to lead a search and to be part of a search for the best people, because the people, you all in the chairs, are what makes this thing work. So thank you for coming, Marshall. Thank you, and committee, thanks. We'll look forward to hearing more. We are adjourned.